Are you ready? Ready to bring a revolution to your relationships? Ready for the experiences on your dating adventure to evolve? Ready for more passion, intimacy, connection, and love in your relationship? Ready to heal past relationship wounds? You're in the right place. I'm Alan, the love engineer, and this is the Relationship Revolutions podcast. In this series, you'll get guidance and tips from me, interviews from other relationship experts, insights from couples who already have a great relationship, and other mind-opening conversations. G'day, and welcome to the latest episode of Relationship Revolutions. And this week I am joined by Beckie Martin, who has spent a long time living on the road with her family of four, which started off as a dream, put back to the backs of the minds, and then she got inspired by a video on YouTube. But we'll be talking about that a little bit later. So, Beckie, first two questions. How are you and where are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Beckie, and I am on the eastern United States. It's 9:30 in the morning here.
It's 1:40-ish in the afternoon here in England, so
Okay.
fun way to work around time zones.
Definitely.
So, your life on the road being a dream, how did you get to that point of actually living on the road, and why was it that you put it off?
So it's interesting. It's one of those things that my husband and I talked about. We've been married for 26 years, and it's one of those things that we talked about, for as long as I can remember. But we just thought it was something that people do when they retire. We had no idea that there were families on the road. And it's at the end of 2018, I was talking to my aunt who had spent some time on the road with her husband. And it kind of put the idea back in my mind. But again, it was like, we have to wait for years. And then in the beginning of 2019, I saw a YouTube video of a family of 11 that was on the road. And I thought, okay, so it went from, can we do this to how can we do it? And so we did a lot of research. I wish, that we were just independently wealthy and could just, just buy an RV and live on the road and not have to work. But we made a decision to work along the way. And I remember just saying, even if I have to clean toilets, because I'm like, you get to see the United States. So even if that's what I have to do, then that's what I'll have to do. Now, when I actually had to do that, wasn't as fun.
What, the living on the road or the cleaning toilets?
The cleaning toilets. I had to do that not very much at one of the campgrounds that we worked at. So we kind of worked different jobs here and there, and that's how we made money when we were on the road. We sold our house too, which gave us a little bit of money, and then we bought our RV and started traveling from there.
And for those of us who are not in America, how would you define what an RV is?
Okay. I wish I could just show you out my window because it's in the driveway right now. It's a small, oh gosh, I'm terrible with descriptions. It's just a big trailer. We lived in a fifth wheel, but it had 2 bedrooms in it and, a kitchen, living, dining room. It's very small, but it worked. We had no RV experience when we went on the road, which is kind of ironic because, the name of our page is We Will Figure It Out. And that's kind of our philosophy. Sometimes you just got to dive in, sink or swim. And we dove in and we did sink some and we swam some.
I'll bet. One of the reasons I wanted to get you on was because after my divorce went through and through the never-ending roller coaster of rebuilding my life,
right,
I found myself in that place where I've got that much money coming in, that much goes off in child maintenance, and that much goes off to the mortgage, and then there's very little left at the end of the first week, let alone the fourth week. And I looked at buying a caravan and just sort of parking that where I was working and living in that. And then I suggested that to one of the guys I was working with. He says, well, why don't you get a van and convert that into a camper van and then live in that? So, can I do that? So, like you, up comes YouTube. So I watched no end of videos, and I thought that kind's interesting. Sounds interesting, but I've got 2 kids. how are they going to take it? How's their mother going to take it when I say, oh, by the way, I've sold the house and I've bought a van and I'm going to put the kids in there at the weekend? I figured it
Right,
probably wouldn't
shocking.
go down very well.
Right.
So, and then I remember talking to a coach about it one day, and he says, well, maybe the reason you think you can't do it is the reason that you need to. As in,
Interesting.
having the kids is the reason I can't. Well, maybe getting it, and they're the reason I need to. So I
Right.
looked into that. Sort of, okay, what happens if I show them the videos on YouTube?
Nice.
And they said, I like that. That looks fun. Can we do it? So,
Uh-huh.
sold.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
Nice.
I've had 3 years living in my van, which and lots of weekend adventures with the kids. And I thought, well, this is great, but for weekends. But what's it like full time? Because I get the impression your vehicle is much bigger than mine. But certainly living in a van, you are, how shall I put it, spatially challenged.
Yes.
You have to keep moving stuff around. Is that something you experience as well, or?
So if you imagine you're the camper and then just make it a little bit bigger, that's what we lived in. So it was a fifth wheel. It's 36 feet. And we got rid of a lot of stuff. We sold a lot of stuff. But also even probably a month on the road, I was taking stuff to the thrift shop just because we had too much stuff. And I was like, why did I bring this much glass? Like, just from dishes to, I was like, why? You're traveling, things are bumping around. I don't know. But again, it was a learning experience, and you learn along the way. That's how you do it. So yeah, we even had too much stuff even living in the fifth wheel. So we got rid of stuff along the way.
Did you find you bought more stuff along the way as well?
We probably a little here and there, but not too much. We just kind of had everything we needed, and what we spent money on more was experiences over things. I'm sure we did buy a thing or two, but usually we try to take the philosophy, if we bring something in, then something has to go out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when I was getting ready to do it, you sort of, like you say, you have a lot of stuff that you need to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also a lot of stuff I didn't want to get rid of. So I put that in a storage thing, and then sort of 12 months later, you think, I haven't been into that storage thing at all. I obviously don't need that stuff.
Exactly.
So you're getting rid of more stuff.
Right. We had a storage place too, just to keep some of our things, but it's the same thing. Once you go back, you're like, wow, I didn't need this for, a year. So how much of this do I really need? And it's interesting because we're in a house right now traveling part-time, and we're like, how did we get all this stuff? Because we lived in such a small space for so long, but it's amazing how quickly you accumulate it.
Yeah.
And
you wonder why you actually have all that stuff anyway, because you prove to yourself on the road that you don't really need it.
Exactly. Very true. But we had some things like, our girls at the time were 11 and 16. So there were stuffed animals and things like that. I had to limit them. I think I said 13. Like you can bring 13 stuffed animals. So we had to, put the rest of theirs in storage. So they had some stuff as well.
Yeah, what I did with mine was got 2 boxes that were the same size. Right, that's your box, that's your box. Anything that doesn't fit in there, we're not taking with us.
Oh, smart.
So in the end, we ended up still having to have a compromise where there was the box that they were taking with them, another box of stuff that they weren't sure about that went to the storage thing.
Oh, nice.
But we had to get rid of a lot of stuff then, but we just didn't need it.
You don't.
And certainly, when you don't have that space, I find it does make you very, very different with your shopping habits.
It does. Even what you bring in to put in the refrigerator, because the refrigerator is so much smaller. So you have to really think about things before you make any purchases.
Yeah, how much food will we actually need this week?
Right.
And then go from there, rather than, well, we'll put that in the freezer for one day when we're stuck, and we'll put that in the freezer and we'll keep that in the fridge, and then all of a sudden you've got a freezer full of stuff that you don't use.
Definitely. Yeah.
So what impact did living on the roads have on your relationship with your husband?
So I think I'm going to be honest. Some days are good and some days were not so good. I think it's like anything. I feel like everybody's trying to find this balance, and there's no such thing. Sometimes you're way over here and sometimes you're way over here, you do your best to keep it right in the middle, but it just inevitably one way or another.
Yeah.
I would say our relationship was challenged definitely as he was backing up the camper and trying to get into spots. But I mean, just in general, I think you have to communicate, whether you're living in a home or whether you're living in an RV. You have to learn to communicate. We said the same thing to our children. You're going to have to let us know when you need space. You're going to have to let us know. You're just going to have to communicate with us. And so I think that's the key, as best as you can, to communicate your needs. And so I remember there were times I would call a friend from the car just because I needed a space outside of the RV. And that's the thing. We're a very close-knit family, but you need time to yourself, and making sure that everybody has that is necessary.
Yeah, especially when there's that small space. Because if you've two kids within that small space,
yes,
and especially when they go through the teen years, they need that space to themselves. Where if you've got a normal house with separate bedrooms, that's easy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if you're in an RV, it's not. So where do they go for that space if you're out on the road?
They each went to their separate bed. No, I mean, I would say my 16-year-old specifically is very good about communicating what her needs are. So if she needed to take time away, and she could drive, so if she had to, go somewhere, or if she just needed to take time in our room, so she had like a space to herself, and then her sister had the space in her room. But I will say, as much as we're a close-knit family, putting us together in the RV definitely made us closer. Like I remember nights, hearing them laugh and giggle in their room when I'm in my room, and they're supposed to be asleep, but I couldn't say anything because I don't know. It was just like music to my ears, I guess, just to hear them laugh and chuckle together about things, even though they were supposed to be sleeping. So it was such a good experience for all of us, I feel like.
Yeah, because you can tell those times, like you say, even though they're supposed to be asleep, they're happy.
Exactly. You don't want to turn off happiness.
No, and at the same time, you don't want them to wake up with grumpiness either because they haven't had enough sleep. So
exactly, it's a balance that doesn't exist, Alan.
It is indeed, and well, let's face it, the kids don't come with an instruction manual, do they?
Oh my goodness, they sure don't. That would be nice.
So, what would you say was the biggest challenge that you've had with the life on the road?
Oh my. I think you have to learn to go with the flow, which is probably true for life in general and not just RV living. But I think there were times, where we had breakdowns, or we didn't get to where we needed to be, or whatever. And like I said, our philosophy is kind of like, we'll figure it out. We said that a lot. But you have to just be willing to go with the flow and realize that things never go how you imagine. I mean, just in a general life sense, nothing goes. You think, oh, we're going to get in an RV and things are going to be honky-dory, things are going to be so good. And they were, but it takes being intentional. It takes, doing the work, but also you have to go with the flow.
Yeah, most definitely. So which one of you would you say struggled with that going with the flow the most?
Oh my. I think it depended on the day. I think certain things trigger certain people, So if we didn't get to where we wanted to go, it was probably within the time frame. That was probably my husband. To sit on the side of the road, that was probably me, who didn't really go with the flow. And I think our moods definitely affect our kids' moods and how we handle things. Like we had a breakdown when we were traveling recently, and we were on the side of the road for 5 hours, and we were so miserable because there was nothing around. If there was a gas station or something that we could have walked to, but there was nothing. And I think when your mood starts to go after so many hours just waiting, it definitely affects your children as well. So I
Yeah,
think it was depending on the day.
yeah. I think the parents' mood affecting the children is true wherever you are in the world or in a house, whether it be a mansion, be it a one-bedroom
Right.
apartment or an RV.
Right. Exactly.
They get
Exactly.
affected by it so much.
Right. Right. What about you and your camper van? How did that affect you?
Well, I realised how much I like my space,
Okay.
and it's like because I was in it Monday to Friday on my own, so I've got my bed at the back and I've got the table and chairs at the front, and then when I've got the kids at the weekend, I have no space
Right.
because we don't have to fold the table and chairs away to get their beds out. So if we're only
Right.
somewhere for 2 days, their beds stay out and they
Mhm.
chill out on my bed.
Okay. Right, right. Exactly. Exactly. No space for
Well,
you.
yeah. Well, we do have an awning we put off to the side, so sometimes they'll be in there, but a lot of the time they steal my bed.
Right. Of course. Of course.
So
So,
adds to the fun of it.
right. Definitely. Definitely.
So, what impact would you say life on the road had for your daughters, both in who they are as people, but also education? Because I know a lot of people who have children would love to do it, but they don't want to take the kids out of school.
Mm-hmm. I've always been a homeschool parent, so for us that wasn't different. But I will say life outside of the bubble is different, you know, and wherever you're at, you've created a bubble, like they're familiar with certain things and certain people in certain situations. And I feel like, we expanded the bubble, I guess, is the best way to say it, which was great because you need that. You need to think different thoughts and meet different people that think absolutely opposite of you, because that's life. That's how life
Yeah,
is. And we were talking about it a little bit before, but I think there's a lot of people that just don't like to step their toe over the county line. They just are comfortable in their space, and maybe that's their thing, and that's totally fine. But it's just so important to get outside of that. It's so important to just meet different people and think different things. And I think that was big for me as well, to just we met all kinds of different people on the road. And we started in 2020, which was right in the middle of the pandemic. We had made a decision we were going to go on the road in May of 2020, and then the world shut down. And
yeah,
but by September, I guess it was August of that year, we were like, it's either now or never. It's either now or never. And so, the thing about having an RV is you're kind of contained, which a lot of campgrounds like that, they started reopening around that time. So it was helpful.
yeah,
But yeah, just getting outside of your bubble is good. I Let me say
yeah,
this. I think it's good, and I think it has challenges. Um, I have a daughter with a disability, and so she walks with a prosthetic leg, and she's here in our area. People know her. People know her and they see her and they're like, oh, that's Alina. She's in her homeschool co-op, she's in her group, and people, in the neighborhood or whatever, they know her. But when you're out and people don't know you, it's like leg. You know what I mean? That's
yeah,
all they see. They don't know her. And so I feel like that was challenging. That was challenging for me and for her to be seen not as a person, but kind of as the disability. You know what I mean?
yes. People have a tendency to spot the differences in people more than they spot the similarities.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So I think that was challenging, but again, the thing is that's life. You're not, you might be safe in the bubble, but it's not the real world. And I think both my girls and us as well needed to experience life outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned being in the van for the COVID time. I
Uh-huh.
was living in my van then as well. And
Okay.
when the first lockdown hit, I was on a campsite, one of the local campsites, I was the only van there. There's no caravans or anything. There's just me, the local social
Wow.
club, which had already been closed for 6 weeks because of the COVID regulations and nonsense. And then on the Sunday morning, they knocked on the door and said, "I'm sorry, but we're going to have to ask you to leave because of COVID. We've got to close down, and we're told that everyone's got to go home and isolate." Like, this is my home, and there's me in a field. I can't
Right.
get much more isolated, but I've still got to
Right.
leave.
Right. Oh, wow.
It
So what did you
made
do?
no sense at all.
Right. Right.
I ended up camping out on my parents' drive for a few months.
Okay. That works.
Yeah, so they sent me home from a field to go and spend half my time in a 1-bedroom apartment with my elderly parents that would have been on the at-risk list. So it doesn't make
Oh,
any
wow.
sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I would say for here in the US, it all depended on what state you were in. And then never
Yeah,
mind, it went from, it also went county to county. So you could be in the state of Tennessee and some people were like, COVID, what? And then within the same state, but a different county, they would be like, you're allowed to be here and you're allowed to park, but excuse me, you're not allowed to have any guests over. You can't be outside your camper. Our restrooms are closed, so it just varied from county to county.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. The rules over here got ridiculous, especially with the second one where you can go out for a meal at a pub providing you eat outside. So you can go
Oh,
out to
yeah.
eat as long as you're inside, outside. It just made no sense.
I know.
Like, you can go, sit down and have a meal, but you're not allowed to order a drink from the bar. They've got to come out and serve you. It's like, you've got to wear a mask if you're standing up, but if you sat down, it's okay. It's like, what?
Yes. That's how it was here as well. We had some outside inside. So we had one restaurant specifically that you could go into, but they would seat you outside in a tent, which was
Yeah,
confined. And I was like, how is that different than just eating inside? I mean, you're outside but inside. It didn't make sense.
yeah.
So
You're still breathing the same air.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there was a lot of that. But there were some great things over that time as well. When we got to Florida, we found a lot of other full-time families that were on the road as well. And it was like it reminded me of what I presume the 1950s was like. Just, kids riding around on their bike, playing all day outside. It was great. It was great to have that because over that time too, it's like I think this was purposeful, obviously, but they made us feel like we were so divided over that time about everything. And when you really got out there and talked to people, even if you saw things differently, you still could have a conversation. And when you're at your house behind the safety of your computer and there's just so much fear of like, oh my goodness, everybody hates how I think and whatnot. And to be out there realizing that you can have a conversation with anybody about anything, it was
Yeah.
it was just really cool to be able to see.
Yeah, I've also found with the van life, I made a lot of friends that I would not have made or connected with in any other way.
Yes, agree.
I also met a lot of people that said, "You can't live in a van. How can you have your children in a van? That's child abuse. That's this, that's that." Well, that's
Oh,
your opinion. Go
right,
away.
exactly. Right,
They
right,
love it.
exactly. It's interesting. I was talking to someone about this recently, how the things that people will say to you when you tell them that you want to live life on the road, I guess because it's not so common. And I think I had someone tell me, I won't say who, but someone in my life, was just kind of like, "Oh, you just want to do the latest thing." No, but okay. It's just weird. And the whole, the safety issue, but it was we were together all the time,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's interesting. No matter what decision you make in your life, people are going to have something to say about it. It
absolutely. So you might as well make the decisions that you want and live life on your terms as long as it's not causing harm to anyone else. What's the issue?
Absolutely. Yep, I agree. I agree. So, it's just interesting. It's exactly like you said, having conversations with people and meeting people on the road that we would have never met in normal life. And it was good. People that were exactly opposite of us. We would have never met them in small town America. And meeting them on the road was just, it really was a gift. We have lifelong friends that we've made on the road. And we have one couple that we met when we were doing a work camping job in New Hampshire, which is Northeast United States. And we've met up in 12 different states since then. So it's just, we've made a way to see each other because we just, but we would have not connected any other way.
So were those 12 meetings purely by chance, or were they planned?
They were planned. It's like, we're coming through here. We're coming through here. Okay, let's meet up here. So, and then sometimes we were together in different states. One time they came here in our little corner where we're at. We're very close to like 3 different states.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's one of the things that surprised me about van life and relationships, because when I made that decision, the lady I was seeing at that time thought I was absolutely bonkers and didn't really get it. And funnily enough, that relationship didn't last. And I think she was one of the ones that says, you can't live in a van with kids. Watch me.
I know, exactly.
And I was like, okay, I'll be single for a while then. It's fine. And then you watch all these things on YouTube that say, to get a good woman, you've got to be 6 foot tall, and you've got to have a 6-figure income and a 6-pack and all this, that, and the other. And think, no. Oh, well. And you look at society's definition of success, which is probably the equivalent of the American dream, like the country house and the white picket fence and all that nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I looked at my life, I was like, right, okay, I'm none of that. And then when I connected with my partner, Hannah, I still had none of that, and it didn't matter.
Right.
Because I realised that actually a man can bring so much more to a lady's world, more than just his income or what he looks like, or that feeling of safety, which isn't just how often he goes to the gym and how big his muscles are.
That's very true. I think you're always going to be able to find someone who understands who you are and appreciates you for you.
Yeah. But
and
you
that's
just
a
got
gift.
to be willing to get outside your house.
You do. Right. Exactly. That helps.
Yeah. I actually think some sort of traveling, whether it's backpacking or van life or whatever it may be, should be part of everyone's life in their early years, whether it's a child going out with their parents or a teenager or someone in their early 20s. Because what I find is when you do stuff like that, you find a lot more about yourself than you can in any other way.
It's very true. You do. I tell my oldest is now 20, and I tell her, do it now. Like, just travel while you can, see as much as you can while you can. I feel like, she has the same wanderlust that we have, in the sense of she wants to see it all, and she wants to travel overseas, and she wants to, there's so many things that she wants to see and do. And I'm like, do it. Absolutely. You have to. If it's in your heart to do, you should do it, And I think something that you said earlier was similar. Like, don't tell me I can't do it. Like, because if you tell me I can't do it, then I'm going to have to prove you wrong. It's just in our nature, I think, would say that to her as well. And it's going to be hard for mom to, to let her go as a young woman, but she needs to experience those things.
Yeah, I think my parents found it hard when I said to them that I'm going out to Australia for a year at 26.
Oh gosh. They didn't like that.
They were supportive of it, but I think the day they took me to the airport and when I went off to get on the plane, I think it hit them a little bit then.
Right, exactly. So can I ask what you did in Australia? Was it like job related or just?
No, it was at that time, there was probably a little bit of I'm going to go on an adventure, and a lot of it was I've got all these problems and stuff I don't like in my life. I'm going to run away as far as I can.
Nice.
And then the problems follow me.
Tag on it. That always happens.
It certainly does.
Yes, you cannot run them.
Yeah, out of years backpacking out there and did a bit of work when I noticed my bank account was disappearing quite rapidly.
Right.
But then
That
when you
makes a
spend 2
difference.
weeks in a party town, it's inevitable.
Right, exactly. I think, that's one of the things I think that stop a lot of people from traveling is just the money. And what we found is work camping. So that work camping, the definition is basically any job that you do while you're in your RV, living in your RV. A lot of people will work at campgrounds. Um, some people will have an online job or whatever. But I think it's like I said earlier, if you want to do it, you'll find a way to do it. You'll find a
Yeah.
way to make it happen. So even if it's something that you don't necessarily enjoy, and work camping is usually for a season. So, okay, even if I don't like this job, can I tolerate it for 3 months? Can I tolerate it for 4 months and just move on to the next thing? My husband also took some temporary jobs when we were in the Southern United States as well. And so you'll just find a way to do it if you want to do it. But that's the thing, is that there's so much fear associated with it. And I don't tell anybody don't go out with zero in your bank account, but I mean, if you if you can make it work, then best of luck.
Yeah, I think 0 was probably close to the figure I came back with.
Right, that's not good. But you survived, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I did. Well, after the first 2 weeks, I thought, right, I need a job, and I thought, I'm a qualified mechanic. I can get a job anywhere, so they tell me.
Mm-hmm.
No, they say, have you got any
Oh.
tools with you? No. Are you going to buy any? No, because I don't want to stick them in my backpack. Oh, you're going to get a car? No. And they said, oh, what are you going to do here then? I said, well, I can fix anything. Just lend me the tools. No. So, thought, okay, I know how to work behind the bar. Have you got a hospitality license? No. Well, you can't get a job here then.
Oh
So,
no.
okay, what do I do now? So, got on the internet as you do and found a company that trained backpackers to work on farms. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, I grew up on a farm, so how hard can that be? So I went and did that, and after the first 2 days, the farmer then sort of did a bit with the cows with us, and then a bit with the sheep, and then he says, "Now I'm going to show you the tractor and how it works." And he says, "This is how you check the engine oil. This is how you do this, and this is how you do that." And he looks at me and says, "Have you learned something today?" I said, "Do you want a truthful answer?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Nope." I said, "I grew up on a farm, and I'm also a qualified mechanic." He says, right, in that case, I'll stop talking to you like you're an idiot.
Oh
So I had
gosh.
a great time working with him, and then ends up in going to New South Wales and driving tractors for 3 months. I use the term loosely because they were driven by the satellites. You just had to turn it around either end.
Oh, okay.
But it was good fun. Then, so I got saved some money up doing that. Then went up the east coast, then down across to Alice Springs, and got another job on a cattle station out there, working sort of 3 hours drive from literally anywhere. That was a
Wow.
very mind-opening experience.
Okay. I bet so.
Yeah, especially when you're working with the Aboriginals and sort of asking them about their culture and why we're reading stuff on the aeroplanes and seeing things on the media saying that all these young Aboriginals in Alice Springs are just listening to really unhealthy music and getting drunk and causing fights. And they say, well, look, the white man's destroyed our culture. They have no purpose. They've taken the land away. And it's like, interesting. That's a different story to what we hear in school back home.
Isn't it? Yeah. Life is different than when the history books tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. And then okay. So they used to have this initiation thing, and then when they'd done that, then they knew that they were a man. I thought, how do I know I'm a man? I've no idea. Nobody tells you. Is it just because you go out and get drunk when you're 18 or 21? Who knows?
Lots of interesting things you learned out there, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I bet you have a lot of great stories.
That'll be for another podcast, though, I think.
Right. Or a book someday, something, maybe.
Yeah. And even out there, you find how small the world is.
Yes.
Because I did a scuba diving course with a guy who lived in the neighbouring town to me.
Really?
And then I was talking to a couple of lads in a bar in Cairns. They said, "Where are you from?" I said, "A place you've never heard of." And he says, "Try me." So I'll give him the name of it. And he says, tapped his mate on the shoulder and says, "Where are you from?" So he says the same town. And he even actually lived next door to one of my friends.
That's crazy.
It is, yeah.
What are the chances?
You would say
I
little
actually,
and none, but
right, exactly. Well, it's interesting. Excuse me. I ran into a guy in Florida who he wasn't like from our small town, but he knew my cousin. And I was like, because I guess they worked in the medical field. And
yeah.
yeah, so I was like, what are the chances to run into somebody that knows your cousin in a completely different state? But you're right, the world is small.
Yeah. And called into a bar on route to Alice Springs or to Uluru. So I went on a coach trip out there. And then this bar you stop at, the guy who owns it has got a dingo that stands on the piano and sort of howls or sings, which is slightly bizarre. And then you find out that your cousin went there a few years before, and the guy who owns the bar also grew up in a town not far from me.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's
Crazy.
interesting. I still am trying to picture the dingo singing to the but that was interesting.
Yeah, I think I've got some photos of it somewhere. I'll have to have a look out and send them to you.
Yes, I would
And
love that. I would love that.
also went to a bar in Cairns where the guy was singing "Standing on His Head."
Oh my
Why I don't
goodness.
know, but he does.
Right, exactly. Whatever works. Whatever works. He probably having a good time.
Oh yeah, yeah, and did the
I'm
one
sure.
song upside down, but it's like, how are you doing that? I can't even sing that way upright.
Wow. People are great.
Yeah, I can't work out why I grew up so scared of people.
I know, it's interesting. I don't know, maybe we're just conditioned to, the whole stranger danger thing
Yeah,
and lots of strangers are a lot of fun.
yeah,
You have some every now and then that, as you know, you like just in general in life, you've probably had awkward exchanges with people, but for the most part, they've been good.
yeah, yeah. And I think that stranger danger advice can be useful when your kids are 5,
Hmm.
but when they get older, that also needs to be conditioned out of them,
Hmm.
because that girl or guy you want to speak to in a bar that you fancy the pants off, they're a stranger.
Right, exactly. I think we started talking recently about how you have to trust your gut,
Yeah,
over the whole stranger danger thing. I mean, my girls are older now, but just you have to pay attention to that. Pay attention if somebody makes you uncomfortable, pay attention to that.
yeah, absolutely. As there's a lot of kids when I was younger that felt very uncomfortable with a guy that's on the TV. His name was Jimmy Savile.
Hmm.
He used to have a program called Jim Will Fix It. So you write in and he'll fix any dream for any kid kind of thing. He turned
Okay.
out to be one of the most notorious paedophiles in the country.
Oh, that's awful. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's not good.
No, it just goes to show that kids can sense when something's not right.
They
But
can.
so often adults say, "Oh, don't be silly," and teach them to
Right.
dismiss it.
I
And
know.
we don't
We
listen to our
talk
guts when we're adults.
we don't. We don't. We talk ourselves out of it for whatever reason. Oh, I'm just being silly. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental or whatever, but I mean, I feel like God gives us a gut for a reason, and we need to trust ourselves more with that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
So, what are the plans going forward for you and your family? More travels, or staying put for a little bit, or
I feel like we've been put long enough. It's time to get back out there. I have an itching. It's funny. I was telling my daughter the other day, I was like, "Oh, we just have not been anywhere for so long." And she was like, "We were just in Florida at the end of January." And I was like, "Oh, so it's, been 6 weeks or whatever." We at this point we're hoping to be back out on the road full time in the fall. That's what the plan is. And I always say that's what the plan is. because you got to hold that stuff loosely. You know,
Yeah.
you just, life can happen and things can change, but that's what our plan is at this point.
Excellent. So have you ever thought about going across the border and touring around Canada, or
Oh
are you
yeah.
just staying in the States?
No, I mean, eventually I would love to travel overseas. I feel like there's so much that I want to see. When we were on the road, we stayed mostly on the East Coast, and so we would like to spend some time out west, but I would love to travel overseas just cuz there's a whole world out there, you know. I just
It
I
certainly
just
is.
got to I got to find out financially how to make that happen.
I know that feeling very well.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely. So, there's got to be a way. I know I'll find it, but just just got to be a way.
Excellent. So if anyone's listening to this and wants to know a bit more about life on the road, or even just learn more about your experiences, how can they get in touch with you?
So, all of our social media is under the name We Will Figure It Out, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. We just kind of talk about a little bit about our story. We post silly reels of things on the road, and that I would eventually like to do a little bit more on YouTube. But right now, it's just kind of posting the excuse me, posting the short, just the short little reels. So that's where we're at. So if you have any questions, I feel like I'm an open book about that kind of stuff, um, because I think the biggest thing that you can do, if there's something that you want to do, find someone that's doing it and ask questions.
Absolutely.
And that applies to everything, for homeschooling, for adoption, for travel on the road for us. But anybody that's doing what it is that you want to do, podcasting, ask a podcaster. So I feel like most people are open books about things like that. So that's
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah, let's face it, most people like talking about themselves more than they like talking about anything else.
It's true. It's true.
Except strange people like me. I'd rather listen to other people.
Yeah, that's good though. We need people to listen to us because we're talkers.
So, final question.
Yeah.
As this podcast is called Relationship Revolutions,
Yes.
if there was one thing from your perspective that would bring a revolution or evolution to the world of dating and relationships, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. That's a deep question.
It
For
is.
9:30 in
That's
the
why I
morning.
save it till the end.
I know. All right. If there's something that I can say that would bring a revolution to dating and relationships. All right.
Yeah.
Let me think, Alan. The piece of advice that I always give to, to couples that are newly married, is don't talk about your significant other negatively behind their back. Everybody's like, oh, but I just need to vent. You really don't. You don't need to vent negatively to 5 different people about your spouse or your partner. And I think that's one of the things that we learned the hard way in our marriage. And another thing that I would say, just what I said earlier, there's no balance. Like sometimes my husband is going to be given 150% and I'm given 5, and sometimes it's vice versa. And sometimes we're more in the middle, but it's never going to be 50-50. One person's doing 75, one person's doing 25. We try to keep it around the middle, but it's just nothing is ever like they show you in the movies. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes, some spontaneity, but it takes intentionality to make those things work. How was that?
Absolutely. Love it.
Okay. Makes me nervous. Now at 2:00 in the morning, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I should have said this, but that's what it is now. So hopefully that was okay.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to possibly have you back on at some point when you're out on the road.
Okay, that sounds great. The background will be a little different.
No problem.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have this figured out by then.
No worries.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Alan.
Thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, please leave me a review on your preferred podcast platform. Click the like button and also subscribe so that you get the new episode notifications. I'm curious, what did you take away from this episode? Please share your takeaways with me. Send me an email to relationship-revolutions@theloveengineer.rocks.